Well, it's time to answer some of your email questions during our Bring It On segment today. Pat, this first one is from Edward, who says, we had a male Labrador retriever that was almost 13 years old. He had a tumor in his mouth and he had a hard time walking. I prayed day and night for his healing. He got so bad we had to put him to sleep. I'm not sure why my prayer didn't get answered, but I didn't question God. I said that his wisdom is greater than mine. I don't understand, but I trust God. Where did I go wrong?
The reason you went wrong is you multiply by 7 a dog's life.
91.
91 years old. So if you've got an old guy around, he's 91 years old, and you pray, oh God, raise him up. I mean, come on, it's time for him to die. And it was time for that dog to die. So how did you go wrong? Well, you just were praying for the wrong thing, that's all.
Yeah.
And I mean, you were fighting nature.
Is that true in dog, I mean, what we're talking about is that it's said that dogs are 7, you multiply 7 times
That's
what
right.
their lifespan is.
To get the human equivalent of the horse is
to the
3.
human.
So horses, they don't.
Horses are what?
Times 3.
Times 3,
so you
really?
A horse maybe lived as long as 30, so he'd be like 90.
Wow.
So that, wow. But the dogs, I mean, that's the way it is. So how'd you go wrong? You did wrong. You prayed for the wrong thing. You know, people love their dogs. I prayed for a little dog one time. He was a mixed breed. We called him Mighty Mutt. And the Lord healed him. That dog looked at me and it was just so amazing. You know, Mighty Mutt.
Did he have a cape?
He could have. He was the nicest dog, but he was an absolute mutt. And yet, I mean,
the mutts are the nicest dogs.
God healed him. I mean, he just looked at me like he felt the power of God.
Yeah.
But he was a young dog. And then he later died. He had heartworms. So, you know, dogs die.
They do, as do the rest of us, yes. Okay, this is very unusual, Pat. This is from John, who says, my dad's senior pastor doesn't like me and threw me out of his moving car on the same day my dad had major surgery. Years later, when I had to talk to this pastor for help getting my paralyzed father to see his dying mother, this pastor threatened me again. He said that he had the right to do so because, quote, Jesus took a whip to the people in the temple. I reported this to the church secretary, who told me she would let the leadership know, and they never contacted me to resolve the issue. Does forgiveness and turning the other cheek mean that I'm not supposed to call the police and press charges?
For turning the other cheek is fine, but if somebody throws a teenager out of a moving car, that is deadly assault.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a crime.
However, he then says here, years later, when I had to talk to him, so he's waited, really.
Well,
I mean, I
that
don't
old man
know.
should have never been allowed in a church. He's got issues that are
Big issues, yeah.
But to throw a kid out of a car, moving car,
Yeah.
and then talk about Jesus with a whip in the temple. I mean, how distorted can it get? That makes me sick to see somebody like that.
Me too.
But the church should have dealt with him. And it's a little late now, but what you do, you go to see the guy, take somebody with you, and if he won't receive it, then take it to the church. But that thing should have been made public. That's a terrible thing for somebody in a church office. He's supposed to be a tender, loving pastor.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, this is Giselle, who says, I'm a committed Christian and an internet marketing consultant and trainer. Business has been very slow this past month, but I believe that next month will be better. I'm coming across many New Age metaphysical practitioners who want my services, and I am torn. I can't afford to turn away business like I have in the past. I can help them by setting up websites and training them without actually marketing their services, keeping everything technical. Should I be open with them and tell them I'm a Christian and don't believe in what they practice? Do I turn them away? What do I do?
You are helping them market their services. Even if you don't get out there and do it,
You're setting them up
You're
for it.
setting them up for a good-looking website which will attract people to that stuff. You are participating in that, and you shouldn't do it. And don't tell me that the Lord isn't good enough to give you business, that you always have to take witches and Wiccans and people like that. That's nonsense, you know? God will give you other business, but you need to say no. And if you can't say no to this, then go do something else. All right?
This is Zoe, who says, is it wrong for a Christian to practice yoga if they're strictly doing yoga for the exercise?
Yoga exercises are very beneficial. They are stretching exercises. They're deep breathing exercises. But if you have to say some kind of a mantra, then you're praying in Sanskrit to some Hindu god, and that's the part you don't want to get involved in. The yoga has a relationship of spiritual along with the physical. But in terms of stretching exercises, you know, there's nothing wrong with stretching, and that's what it is. Just don't get into the
whole spiritual end of it.
the Sanskrit mantra like you got to do. Don't let that happen to you. The others, I see nothing wrong with it. It's an exercise. All
Okay,
right.
this is Vic who says, my wife, who was a widow of 6 years before we met, and I are divorcing. We've only been married for 2 years, but she's still devoted to her deceased spouse. Could her devotion to her former spouse be a stronghold? I don't want a divorce. I'm committed. We separated 10 months ago and haven't had any contact. What can I do?
I think that somehow that wife never was joined to you. You know, she didn't leave her former husband. She stayed with her husband even though he's dead. And she didn't really unite with you, and she wants to leave. And, you know, if she leaves, let her leave. I wouldn't hold on to that. Is it a stronghold? I don't know whether it's a stronghold, but it's an affection and a love, and she doesn't want to give up. So her former husband's dead, and so she never, if she felt that way, she shouldn't have gotten remarried.
Yeah,
Nothing wrong with being remarried, by the way. You're absolutely free to remarry if one of your spouses dies. But in this case, is it a stronghold? Who knows? But I would just...
Sounds like she's the one who left, which Vic then would be free, right?
Kiss that relationship goodbye.
Yeah.
Better. I mean, you're better off without her, because
because she was widowed 6 years. So if she's still feeling that way after she's now been married to you for 2 years,
she'll probably
she's got
set
a
up
problem with that.
a shrine in the bedroom and burn candles to him. You don't need that.